Good afternoon. I think you all can hear me. Thank you so much for that introduction. My name is Stephanie Reganin. I am the Executive Director of Innovation Partnerships at the Danforth Plant Science Center in St. Louis, Missouri. Thrilled to be here today. Thrilled to be here with all of you, but especially with this panel. We're going to have a great discussion. We will leave time for questions today. And in fact, I don't believe it's up there right now, but there will be a QR code behind me very soon that you will be able to scan and send in questions for the panel, and we'll take those questions at the end. So in case you haven't heard of the Danforth Plant Science Center, we are the world's largest independent plant science research institute in the world. 400 people work at the Danforth Center, 300 of them are plant science PhDs, and St. Louis actually has the largest concentration of plant science PhDs in the entire world at over 1,000. It's something we're very proud of. The Danforth Center is a place of discovery and foundational research, but importantly, part of our mission is to also build St. Louis as a global center for plant science. And that's the part of the work that I lead. I lead our innovation team. I want to say at the outset, I am not a scientist. I'm a political scientist, which is the furthest thing from an actual scientist. But I get the pleasure of working with all parts of our ecosystem to help commercialize research coming from the Danforth Center, but also that we are trying to bring companies and founders and entrepreneurs into the region to partner to bring innovation to market, to farmers and to companies, so we can actually move the needle on things we all care about, like food security and climate change. And so it's been part of that work to build our ecosystem over the 25 plus years of the Danforth Center and lots of other partner organizations like BioSTL and others who have really helped move our ecosystem forward. And it was part of that initiative many years ago, well, it wasn't that many years ago, 2017, I guess. There was a very large delegation of St. Louisans, about 35, that came to Argentina and signed a sister city agreement with Rosario. And one of the key pieces of that agreement was to focus on ag tech. And that meeting catalyzed a lot of things. And Tomás is going to talk about one of those very important outcomes, one that he is very proud of. But one of the things that I'll just say before we kind of let everyone else introduce themselves is that over the course of this 7 years, from 2017 to today, despite a global pandemic in the middle, we have continued to not only build our own ecosystem, but try to figure out and be committed to how we can work with global ecosystems, specifically in Latin America, to grow each of our economic regions, right? To help farmers, but also communities, both in St. Louis, in the middle of the country in the United States, but also across Latin America. And really, Argentina has been where a real center of gravity has been in that work. And so about 8 months ago, we coined this effort. We named it Cultivar. I hope that many of you have actually seen that branding. We have convened a lot of different meetings in a lot of different places, whether that's St. Louis or at World Agritech in Brazil, this week at Aapresid here in Argentina. And the plan is to continue to convene leaders. So these are founders, these are startups, these are ecosystem leaders, to create those collisions that hopefully lead to collaboration that will make meaningful change for our industry. So with that, one thing I will also say before I introduce the panel is that this year's theme has really been focusing on ag tech and geospatial, meaning the intersection of those two industries. We know that things like precision agriculture and digital farming have been around for a long time, but I think we also know that there is a ton of opportunity for continued innovation and growth in that space. And so this year, Cultivar just kind of organically and naturally really focused on that intersection. There's some things we're doing in St. Louis that are pretty cool that Andy will talk about, but also Tomás and his team have a unique passion for as well. So now let's get to the panel. So with this, Andy, I would love for you to chat about the GeoFutures initiative in St. Louis, what that strategy looks like, and how it's relevant to the Cultivar piece.
Perfect. Thank you. And good afternoon, buenas tardes. My name is Andy Deering. I lead the GeoFutures initiative, which is our ecosystem cluster that we're building around geospatial technologies. I also have the pleasure of being a general partner on our geospatial technical venture capital fund that we have in St. Louis with Cultivation Capital. So as Stephanie mentioned, so GeoFutures, so actually first let me do this. I do this at every meeting, interactive. How many people in here know what geospatial means or is? Okay, hey, that's a good number of hands. Okay, we have friends. So geospatial, in many senses, if you didn't have your hand up, you are a geospatial user and a geospatial consumer, whether you use a mapping application or whether you navigating from, when you're driving, or you use Strava when you're working out, right? You're actually producing geospatial information and consuming that information as well. Geospatial has been around for many years. We've mapped countries and mapped, many aspects when we're pioneering new areas. In St. Louis, mapping has been around and geospatial has been around for over 100 years around there in some way, shape, or form. Even earlier than that with some of the expeditions that were started there. We in St. Louis, though, took advantage of a large federal investment that was made in our region, over $2 billion. In the setting up of a national agency around geospatial. We knew that we had a lot of elements that were there around geospatial and how it actually plays into many of our, we use a lot of it for security, national defense, but also with the Danforth Center and what was going on with BioSTL and others. We're an ag tech hub, and building this ag tech hub, we said, wait, how does geospatial information, satellite data, other things play into the agriculture space? And through the development of precision agriculture, through the development of technologies and innovations that are happening on the farms, geospatial is a very important part or a very key piece of helping farmers, helping producers, helping growers understand their farm better and help make more informed decisions. So GeoFutures is a 20-year roadmap that we launched in 2020 of how do we help become the center of excellence around geospatial and build and grow jobs, help innovate and start companies, and then most importantly, how do we help expand and market the knowledge of what geospatial is and how it helps inform? And that's why I'm here, is a key part of this, and what the panel will explain is how important geospatial and agriculture is and all the great work that's happening here and making sure that we're connecting that back into what we're building in St. Louis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. Next, I'd like to go to Joaquín. And something that is absolutely critical in any innovation in agriculture is that the farmer voice is at the center of this. And frankly, this is something I think that you all do really well in Latin America. And so we're thrilled to have Joaquín on the panel. Joaquín, I'd love to hear a little bit about you, a little bit about your company, and why you're interested in this.
Hola, soy Joaquín. I'm Joaquín Urruti. You are not a scientist. Well, you're not a scientist, but I'm not a speaker. So, Espartina is my company. We're part of the RIA holding that gathers 13 companies that got together to adopt new technologies, engage in innovation and sustainability jointly. Within that framework, in April, we went to St. Louis to know the St. Louis ecosystem and to get to know what Cultivar was all about. And we came back home, we were very much impressed because it's the analogous of Silicon Valley, but for agribusiness. We were very much impressed by how an idea in St. Louis, let's say St. Louis is the hen, and the idea is to have an egg, right? So that the hen can work with that egg and a chicken can be born out of the egg, basically. It's amazing the amount of resources that you have over there, human resources, willingness to cooperate. It was really good. And when it comes to geospatial and agro, and agribusiness, which is the topic that we're here for, it was already important, but right now, this year, the artificial intelligence is booming. This is going to be a record year in history. And by way of analogy, I say that AI is going to have an impact in all industries transactionally. And it's going to touch on all of us, every single person in every company, every one of us. Same as the Google autonomous car, it cannot drive on its own yet, save for the Google Center where they have very good signals and markings on the roads, and everything is well set. The data collected at the field is like those lines on the road and signals. So if we had a lot of work to do to make sure that Agro data was accurate and orderly, if we want to apply artificial intelligence so that a plower can work on its own autonomously or will decide to apply more fertilizer in an area than another through the use of AI, we have a tremendous amount of work ahead of us so that we can make sure that all information is impeccable. It's going to be a major input to apply IA quickly. There's a lot to do, but we need to work fast because this is a wave that's hitting us already.
I self-talk now. Sometimes I need to be reminded what I'm saying. Okay. Last but certainly not least, I'd love to hear from Tomás Peña, not only about the exciting things that happened back in 2017 when this whole thing started, but your thoughts on why we are still at this and where we're going.
Okay, thank you. My name is Tomás Peña. Although I speak very good Spanish, I always been joke about that I need subtitles, so I just say it in English, which is kind of the same. In case you didn't understand, I'm going to be speaking in English because it's going to be easier, the conversation here. So I started 20 years ago, more years ago, never mind how many, in Banco Galicia, and I was in very close contact with the ag community, lived in Rosario, then moved to Buenos Aires, and I left the bank because I thought there was a big opportunity called S4, which was the spreadsheet number 4, which was a spreadsheet that would kill, that was made for ag. The Excel sheet, when you open the Excel sheet, you only get 3. This was what fought for the ag space, and he was always thinking about how can we make use of technology and distribute it in the ag world, and that was in 2011. All the basic concepts that were there in 2011 still haven't been solved in 2013. We tried, we raised a lot of money, we went to St. Louis in 2015, and as Joaquín just said, there was a very early ecosystem play, but that year, McKinsey, when they're talking about digitalization of ag, put agriculture in the last place, all red, so no digitalization, and it said agriculture and hunting. So in 2015, even after a lot of years of a lot of money going into the tech world, agriculture was still in the red and still not understood, right? Because it has nothing to do with hunting, of course. So basically, in 2015, I moved to St. Louis and opened S4 in St. Louis. We had to call it S4 because we wanted to make it look cool, but still was spreadsheet number 4. And we met all these people, and we opened an office there in St. Louis, and we tried to work for a year and a half with a lot of help, but it was too early for us to deploy. So we came back to Buenos Aires, and when we came back to Buenos Aires, I convinced them that Rosario was very similar to St. Louis. If you look at the coast of Rosario, the same companies are located in the same shore, and it's 80% of the production of Rosario, of the U.S. and Argentina go through Rosario or St. Louis. Within 500 kilometers, you have all the farming, most of the farming, especially in row crops. And we agreed that there was a very good opportunity to make a sister city agreement between St. Louis and Rosario. 35 people came from St. Louis in 2017. And they helped me open the Yield Lab Latam. Today, the Yield Lab Latam, with a lot of help from people from nesters and people from the farming business, we started an accelerator. We invested in 12 companies. Then we did a second fund. We invested in 11 companies now. We're in our third fund, investing again 11 companies. But we have offices in Buenos Aires, São Paulo, Mexico, Santiago de Chile, Miami, and we have partnerships with GLab in the US, Asia Pacific, and Europe. So it's a network of networks, if you want. And that whole concept hit on us, and from 2017 on, after they came, I kept coming to St. Louis saying, guys, this is a very, very, very big opportunity to work together between Argentina, Brazil, and the US, because it's 90% of the production of soybean of the world, and there's still not enough innovation, especially in geospatial, right? Because we still don't see that there's a lot of people are still using their computers as databases for geospatial information and not using collaborative tools that create enough loads of information to create enough distributed information that creates artificial intelligence. That's the process, right? And that's we can talk later. But so people could understand what I just said, we need to create context. So I told Stephanie 2 years ago, if you can, there's a movie called Wag the Dog. If you can get the dog to wag its tail, you have to wag the dog, which is, si no mueve la cola, hay que sacudir al perro. Entonces, we tried this ecosystem change, and we've been very successful, but I think that we're still at stage 0. This is the ground, this is where it starts, and that's why we're so happy to be here.
Absolutely. I do feel like Cultivar as an initiative, which has only been recently named, but has been an effort for several years now, we are at ground zero, because I think the first couple years we've been busy building trust. We've been busy really kind of trying to show up with a bit of humility that says none of us have all the answers. We are very proud of what we've built in St. Louis, but there is a general acknowledgement that we cannot do it alone, right? And so being able to identify those people and ecosystems and organizations that are committed to showing up in a way that says, how can we work together? How can we use each other's best assets so we don't all have to build all the things? And how can we come to that table and really do this in an authentic way? So you're exactly right, Tommy. Andy, I'm very curious, why is South America compelling from a geospatial research perspective and an innovation perspective? And I'd also like, maybe like as part of your answer, maybe talk just a bit about the Taylor Geospatial Institute and how all this is going to tie together to hopefully not only make it really compelling for geospatial companies to work with what we have in St. Louis, but how we can apply what we're doing and learning in St. Louis here in South America.
Yeah, so Stephanie brings up a good point, or a good question. Why do we, why is there, when you think about innovation and cutting edge, right, it's really how does it impact or benefit the users? As Joaquín was saying, like how does it benefit the end user of who you're trying to sell that product or deliver that good or service to? And so, one element, so as we were thinking about our geospatial ecosystem that we're trying to build, one thing was missing globally was actually having a geospatial research center of excellence. So there's ag tech research centers, obviously the Danforth Center being one of them, but one focused on specifically geospatial and where is it going, what hard problems do we need to kind of investigate and solve, and how do we work with industry to maybe deliver a good idea and bring it out to the field. And so one element of that, and there was a big investment that was made in St. Louis in creating what's now known as the Taylor Geospatial Institute. If you've ever heard of Enterprise Holdings or Enterprise Rental Car, the owner and the chairman wanted to invest in something that was impactful to St. Louis. And so I bring this up, is that we had a big philanthropic donation to help ignite this, to help start this. The outcomes of it are you're starting to see, and actually you had the Taylor Geospatial Institute down in Brazil a month ago, and at World Agritech, and the executive director was there and saw all the activity that was happening, how you all, and I think I use the term as a proving ground, you all are doing more agriculture down here and applying it more than we have acres in the United States. So to really apply and to really prove out a good idea that might happen in a research lab or at a university, to actually see it work at scale, it needs to be at scale. And in Argentina, South America, is at scale. And that really helps prove it. And I would be remiss to say, you all have a spirit and a culture of innovation down here and trying new things. And so being able to do this at scale and being able to have the right attitude or risk profile to say, I want to take that risk and try this because I think it's better. Those two ingredients are why a lot of our researchers and our partners in North America want to plug in and engage with the partners in South America.
Thank you, Andy. I'm actually going to go to Tomás now. In response to what Andy just said, what is the real opportunity, knowing that, in St. Louis, we feel like we have a 100-plus year history in agriculture, right? Monsanto, Purina, Anheuser-Busch InBev, all been headquartered there for a very long time. Monsanto, now Bayer, I guess I should say. Bayer Crop Science is headquartered in St. Louis. But about 25 to 30 years ago, when Dr. Danforth, our founder, and other civically minded people said, now how do we really double down on the research and innovation side of agriculture, this thing we now call ag tech. It'll probably have a different name in 10 years. I feel like we always have to have new names for things. That has been a really good story for St. Louis, this foundational thing that we're building on. And geospatial, we feel, is kind of this next big thing for St. Louis. And what's really cool is the intersection of those two things coming together. So, Tomás, as you have seen these things evolve in St. Louis, and now this kind of next generation sector really coming on, how do you see that being relevant to the work that you care about in Latin America, the companies you're investing in, and then also for the farmers? How does this all tie together?
Yes, so this is key for us and strategic to the core. Why? Because when you go to more evolved ecosystems, some of them are working more on the next big thing. They're working more on certain things that will change the way farming is being done. But what I think we have here in Latin America to share is that we have a lot of talent that is very focused on maybe shorter solutions that lead to adoption. You do have one of the reasons why we asked Joaquín to join is when he went there, he said, "Oh, I can play this game," and this is what's super interesting. Why we have all these 250 people here and say, "Guys, you can play this thing." And you have to not only learn English, which is very good, and maybe some coding, but when you look at the ag problem from another perspective, you see that the biggest problem is that innovation was invested mostly by people who sold you goods, and now it's being demanded by people who buy your goods. That's a very big shift, and that is a very big opportunity at the same time. When we talk about, and we can talk more about API economy. The API economy model is that there's not going to be one big guy who's going to win this battle, but it's going to be a number of people with different specialized solutions that could integrate in different platforms. That might sound very technical, but it's opening the door for people who really want to get involved, that we get involved not only more agronomic knowledge or more AI or more, but also WhatsApp, Starlink, very simple solutions. You buy machinery that brings you lots of data. How can we turn that data into information, and that information into insight, and that information into value creation, so you send that to the bank and they give you better money at better rates, better insurance, better logistics. That is, at the end of the day, the big solution that we were talking with Andy about Latin America, that you can have specialized team that build those APIs and that AI, but also can understand what the problem is. Because as he said, you cannot solve everybody's problem from a centralized place, but today you need a network of networks for this huge opportunity of innovating from the farm.
Yes, thank you, Tommy. Joaquín, I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here. So in the spirit of trust building, and you've been to our ecosystem now, and the session that he attended was very focused on geospatial. He interacted with some of our closest partners, but we know we still have a lot to learn. And I think that one thing that you all do incredibly well, and I think it's been out of a necessity to innovate, farmers in Argentina have certain disadvantages than our farmers in the United States that you all have turned into advantages, which means you're hungry for innovation. It's a sense that I just feel as I've met growers down here, and I see how growers are so invested in innovation. So I'm curious, having limited interaction to this point, but enough that you're still interested in working with us, what could we do better in St. Louis?
Sí, un poco me spoileaste el comentario, porque
You kind of like spoil my comment. In the event Cultivar in Galicia yesterday, one of the last slides showed the sociological profile of Argentine farmers compared to U.S. farmers. And one of the things that came up is, first, the average age of the Argentine farmer is much lower. Age average is very low, even at top positions, and the educational level is very high. So this is a huge opportunity we see here. In the United States, it's harder. Here, it is cool for an agronomist to go work in the field. In the U.S., that's not the case. It's a different profile of an agronomist. And here, we innovate without even knowing or guessing, having a good guess on what the result's going to be. That attitude, that daring attitude is key. I think what we're missing, though, because the youth will lead this process to tidy up data so that everything is interoperable from one platform to the other, because we have siloed information currently, and we need to start interconnecting and communicating that. So given that it will be the youth leading that process, I know they have the right mindset. They have the top-level education that is needed. So we have all the magic ingredients in place for a perfect dish to come out.
I saw that same data yesterday, and it was very compelling, somewhat mind-blowing, actually. A lot to be learned from that data yesterday. So, Andy, what kind of opportunity then do we see that? I know you saw those presentations as well, and just hearing what Joaquín has to say, what kind of opportunity do we have to learn from these ecosystems here and these farmers here as we think about what we're trying to do in St. Louis, but also as we think about trying to bring some of that knowledge back to the United States to make us better in those ways?
Yeah, so I want to first maybe deviate real quick and just talk about the geospatial industry in total and what the opportunity is. As you might see or hear, there is more sensors being launched or deployed now to help monitor, your field, your crops, your, house, whatever it is, than ever before. SpaceX has been a great Uber vehicle to be able to get new assets or new satellites into space, which that's been great. But to the challenge that Joaquín brings up is it presents an amount of data that the farmer doesn't want to have to deal with, right? It presents additional complexities or additional problems for the farmer, even though the data might be extremely valuable. And so I just, as we think about where we're going and trying to stay ahead of where the industry is going, what we need from a talent pool perspective, a talent and this youthfulness and what they need from a training perspective, technology, technical training, computer programming or data science, those are all key degrees that this industry needs especially at the intersection, because there will be more sensors that are being launched than ever before. There will be more that will be going up. You can be able to monitor your crop day after day after day, but can you imagine the amount of data that presents itself? So I just say that to help sift through that, that's one element. And then the second element is, to Tommy's point, don't be a problem looking for a solution. Be a solution that's helping a problem. And so what we see is, how are you really building the algorithms to help address and solve those problems? So I think that's the part that we see a lot of great ideas in the United States, but they're problems looking for solution, or there's solutions looking for problems versus problems looking for solutions. And so I say that is, down here, in being the proving ground, and the farmers are working directly with innovation, they're solving problems, they're testing things out. And so for us to be able to look for that, that's important for us to be solving those problems immediately. And so that's something that we can learn from you. And I think if there's a technology corporation that's in North America that wants to engage and plug in down here, they can hear firsthand from the farmers and growers what the real challenges are and at the scale that you all are dealing with. And for example, a lot of the companies that we work with, maybe they're flying a satellite in space, measuring crop moisture, or crop health, moisture. The size of a field in the United States is very different from the size of the field here in South America. Really, acres versus hectares and the size and the magnitude. And a lot of the times the solutions that are built for North America break when they come down here to South America. So those are things that, thinking about in those partnerships, and as you think about the talent that we need to have in the application, that's something that we need to focus in on.
Sí.
Joaquín?
Sí, una cosa que...
With regards to that, it's important to point out that for solution builders, it's sometimes there are different company profiles they can approach to. The solution needed by a small U.S. company in a small plot needs a profile that is very different compared to a company that has several plots. So, as when emails started to be used, we generated a standard afterwards to be an email provider, and now you can import your contacts to any cell phone because there's a standard behind it that says how systems communicate between each other. Well, the same here. We need a standard. It might be too early, or it might already exist, and I don't know of it, but there should be a standard of communication in between systems. So if a small company has information, maybe it can connect so that they can get many connected services and not a single solution, because everything you need to resolve, you resolve it on a separate platform where you connect. I know it's in the process of changing, but if we had a standard to have performance data, we would have to generate it in a given way, or exchange information from one platform to the other, give it to a company that will do yield forecast model for me. That is very important to have a standard, because with AI, at least as we see it so far, these are not problems that a single company, a single SME can face because of the cost of training the models, though there are open code systems that you can fine-tune yourself. I think the key lies in collaboration. Just plug in to a system and share your data and do with it what you want. Something else that I forgot to mention earlier, for this kind of model, the quality of the information gathered to train it is essential. I'm sorry I repeat, I talk about AI so much, but in geospace and AI, we need to focus on training a lot, because those handling the machinery don't have the required level of training to make the most of data. So I think the key lies there.
I learned a lot just in that answer of yours, honestly. So I am a very low-tech person. Isabel, my colleague in the crowd, knows this very well. So I think about all of the different things that I use, that none of them connect, and yet it doesn't really matter because I'm not making decisions about my livelihood based on that data connecting. It's probably connecting more than I realize behind the scenes that I wouldn't want it to. But the bottom line is, it is very inconvenient and ineffective and inefficient for all of these different systems that exist. So that is a very clear problem that some of this work can resolve. Tomás, so if I think about this specific issue, this intersection of ag tech and geospatial that has become the theme of Cultivar this year, even though it won't be the only theme of Cultivar, it just happened to organically work out that way this year. From where we sit today, in the conversations we've already had, we know that Cultivar is really at ground zero. We're just getting started. And I do not want to offend anyone in the crowd who's done a lot of work on Cultivar, namely Isabel and Teresita, who I think is also in the crowd. She's right there. A ton of work has gone into Cultivar, but we are really just getting started. Where can this go from here? Knowing that I think we've got the right players at the table. It's not that we shouldn't welcome in other companies, other ecosystems, other big thinkers, right? But I think we do have a lot of the right pieces at the table. So where can we go from here to really accelerate this?
So one of the biggest, I would say, wins that we can have with Cultivar is that this whole crowd sees this as an opportunity, right? That you guys can see that this is an opportunity when you see a startup, that if that startup is not there next year, you're going to have seen something that you didn't know that you needed and it's not there anymore. So sustainability of the ecosystem is critical. That means that we need more investors, we need more education, we need more people to support the startups, we need more connectivity, we need more rules of engagement, right? Understand the good thing about talking to Andy about a deal is that we see conceptually the same thing. Maybe he has a different technique, I have a different technique, we value something differently, but we have a common ground with the same, that the work, the amazing job that Ria did on taking into account every single startup and seeing what everybody's doing and what's good and what's bad, and what Nestor is doing, sitting down with farmers and figuring out how can we stop using this and how can we go to the next level. But what's really, really important is that everybody goes deep in their heart and understand that this is an opportunity, a change of ways of doing business that is going to affect profoundly the way you farm. So all that investment that has been siloed, if you want, you have satellites, you have 20 years, 25 years of satellite information for free, downloaded anytime you want. Sustainability, Aapresid has been in the market for 30 years, anytime you want. Big producers, you guys been doing research, but we still haven't been able to get to the AI at a level of certainty. And that, what it needs is a systemic change, right? It's that we all realize that this is a change of paradigm, we all realize that we need new capabilities to take care of this problem. The biggest problem with the startups is when they do really well is that they don't know how to grow. That's the biggest problem of the startups, that 66% of the startups get into trouble when they grow because they start fighting between each other, saying, oh, okay, this is different, how do I grow this? No, you've seen it. So every startup has 100 points to divide, right? And Andy's happy with 10 until he finds out we gave him 12. And we took 4 from her. So that's every day. And so, but in the last 4 years, you had $30 billion of money in BC in Latin America, and almost none of that went to agriculture. So, I mean, it's happening now. We're super happy to see 350 people here. This is amazing. But next year, we need to go to the next level, right?
Yep. I see that the QR code just went away. Sorry about that, but I was going to point again to please send your questions in. I was going to give a little bit of information about a global food security challenge that has recently been launched by the Taylor Geospatial Institute. Tommy's going to be looking up the questions here. Oh, there's the QR code, so please send your questions in. As we think about this new research institute that we have in St. Louis, the Taylor Geospatial Institute, it is a consortium of 8 different entities, 7 universities that were already doing really excellent research in geospatial technology, and the Danforth Plant Science Center. So the Danforth Plant Science Center is not an academic institution, but we work in geospatial, we work in data science, we have a massive data science team. We have a new field site, actually, where we're doing lots of trials with the Taylor Geospatial Institute. So it's a consortium of 8. And the concept works that Taylor Geospatial, as the overarching umbrella organization, will figure out how to maximize and capitalize on the excellent research happening at those existing universities, how they can catalyze them working better together, right? But one of their key strategic initiatives, they've been around a year and a half now, and about 2 months ago, they just launched their kind of 3 top-line key initiatives. One of them is a global challenge, and they could have picked anything. They could have picked national defense. They could have picked healthcare. They could have picked transportation and logistics, although we know that there's a transportation and logistics play in agriculture as well. But they picked food security. And they picked food security for their global challenge because they sit in the heart of the heartland. They know something about the fact that we sit in the midst of academic and research excellence that can do something about food security, but also that geospatial technology has an amazing opportunity to make an impact on food security. So they launched this challenge in name about a month ago, but the process itself has not been formalized. Why am I telling you all of this? Because this ready-made network of cultivar companies and ecosystems are going to get a first look at what this process is going to look like. They're going to help them identify the 3 to 5 global challenges. So, Joaquín, we're going to need your voice in this. The global challenges that geospatial technology at the intersection of agriculture, how that research institute can deploy millions of dollars across 3 to 5 global teams to work on those problems. And those people in those teams do not have to be all academic research institutions. In fact, there must be industry at the table, startups at the table, large corporate strategics at the table to solve these problems. So I wanted to be sure and tell this audience this. You're clearly here today because geospatial interests you, as geospatial was in the title. So in the next month or so, we are going to know a lot more about what that process looks like. And those of you that have been interested in the Cultivar Initiative will have the first opportunity to give input and hopefully put together some kind of proposal. So wanted to flag that as an opportunity. Tommy, we have some questions. Excellent.
Okay, this one's for Andy. What do you mean by solutions looking for problems?
Yes, so I probably said it backwards, I think I did, but really being solution oriented, and I think we kind of brought it up a little bit here, is that you know, instead of having, you know, a farmer or a grower needs to have the answer, right? They don't have time to go and find or discover or do a bunch of analysis to get to maybe an answer. Maybe they don't have the right training to be able to go and know all the data or the information that's out there. So and maybe they might have access to it, but they might need it quickly. This is actually something that we see with the farmers and growers in North America, is the culture is not as innovative as yours, or they might not have the same training and skills as you do. And so they get all of this data or technology thrown at them, and they don't know how to use it, and they just end up not doing it or not using it, or they hand it off to somebody else to a partner or service provider to do it for them. So I think that's when, as we think about solutions, and maybe it's not just one app, it's a series of, as Joaquín alludes to, is we don't want to have them have 15 different solutions for one problem, but really being solution oriented is important, because how are you helping them solve a problem? And I think this is for any business or for any startup, you're wanting to solve a user's problem, not get them halfway there and then they have to go the rest of the way. And so I think, especially for farmers and growers, there's going to be more information out there. There's going to be more data out there to give them insights into that. But giving them a hard drive of data and say, I solved your problem, that's not doing it, right? You got to get them closer to helping them, or moving closer to actually solving the problem.
I can add to that. What he means is that, or what I see also with Santiago, my partner, about this kind of proposal that says, okay, I'm going to solve this. But if you check that this is a problem, or maybe if you talk to a farmer, he says, move a little bit to the right, and maybe you're solving me a humongous problem. But also, and there are a lot of people, so don't get upset at me, farmers don't necessarily are trained to ask. And this is very, very important, and this is something that Joaquín has developed very good, and also Nestor's, on saying, what is it that you guys need? Because sometimes to understand what you need to understand what's out there in the market. So that transactional problem is very, very, very big. And the other problem is that, especially with Geospatial, is that these are data-driven models. Data-driven models says what it says. That the data drives the information that you turn into insight. If the data is saying that you're not right, you're not right. You have to change the solution, because the data is not supporting your thesis. This might sound a little bit technical, but it's a huge problem, because a lot of startups are thinking that they're not looking at the data in a professional way to understand exactly what are the patterns. I don't know if you agree with that.
Sí, me parece que en ese sentido.
In that sense, well, right now, we see that problem very clearly. In fact, when I graduated from university, I worked on a project called the Green Index. We forecasted forage numbers for farmers, and we sent reports to 400 people per month. Nobody used it, though. I'm absolutely sure, because my dad was part of a group that put together all these metrics to calibrate the satellite, to analyze the forage growth. Nobody knew about it. We sent an Excel spreadsheet with no graphs, and nobody knew what decisions to make based on those reports, or very few of them did. Today, we see a major change coming soon. My first computer was a Commodore 64. It was a huge apparatus, no interface. It was like working directly from the computer terminal, basically. And back then, very few people used computers for anything at all. And then people developing software made it more and more user-friendly, and if my grandma was alive today, I'm sure that she would have a bank account, online banking, and she would use apps, because they are more and more intuitive and user-friendly every day. So we are going to see a huge leap forward very soon. Why so? Because we are starting an era when we are just going to talk to a computer if we still have a computer, maybe they become something else. And that analysis that is complex today will be able to be carried out by my grandma at her sofa. So, okay, what's going to be the yield of this plot of land? Just asking. And I think that a lot of opportunities will open up at the back end of all of that, which is data generation.
So here, it says, hi there. Tomás talked about the opportunities for young Argentinian engineers. I didn't say young, I said Argentinian engineers. Don't leave anybody out. And it's pretty interesting. Can he talk a little bit more about and the careers that can apply to this kind of industry? And this is something that you can take also on the Taylor, and what we talked to Nadine. No? I don't know if anybody has seen a postgraduate degree on agribusiness using geospatial. Okay, I rest my case. And again, S4 started in 2011 from Tech. There's a lot of geospatial companies that started 13 years ago, and academia hasn't had the reflexes. So I do think that that's a very big opportunity. But also related to another question that was, and it's related to this, is where can I learn this? You can go online, basically. There's a lot of very basic. I was looking at a course of JSON for 50,000 pesos. So it's not that much about the money, but about the willingness to get out of your comfort zone. I don't know.
Podés decirle a ChatGPT que querés un...
You can ask ChatGPT to tell you about a comprehensive course on this topic and to have links sent to you. Well, ChatGPT won't, but Perplexity probably will. And you will get the links if it's just about the will. If there's a will, there's a way. There are many, many resources online. For example, the Helsinki University carries wonderful training courses. There are no live classes, but you can have all the materials that the students who pay $30,000 have access to.
Yeah, and I'll say we're seeing this more of the universities starting to, typically with geospatial, there was something called GIS degrees and certificates that were out there. But you're starting to see geospatial classes that are ingrained in a lot of other degree programs. So if you're a data science major, you're starting to see geospatial courses working their way in. So it's just providing geospatial skills and tools into other degree programs. And so St. Louis has realized that somebody that comes out with geospatial is not going to be as effective. But if they had somebody that was in an ag degree or an agronomy degree, but they gave them geospatial skills and data science skills, they're going to be more highly effective working in the workspace. Or maybe they're going to start a company and they know how to deal with the data and the systems. And so we're seeing a lot of cross-pollination of geospatial ending up in a lot of other degree programs. And to the point, any degree, whether it be physics, talked about physics earlier with somebody, to others, like geospatial can apply, and those skills can also apply and help make more informed decisions for, or have a better, well-rounded job, because we see geospatial in every single industry sector, not beyond ag tech, finance, insurance, others, and if you have that skill in your toolbox, it makes you a better employee and better worker.
Sí, estoy muy de acuerdo con eso porque vengo siguiendo el tema y...
I totally agree with that. I'm following up on this topic. And we can clearly see that all database systems, all the geospatial information, we can think about it as if it were a database, right? In a technical way, or an Excel spreadsheet in a less technical way. And the only thing that differentiates a geospatial system from an Excel spreadsheet is an additional column that states the location of the attribute you're looking at and the functionalities. For For example, if a polygon is over another polygon, what we see from all the different databases, and we see many new databases, all of them are adding the geospatial attribute or functionality. Today, it's a standard. For any piece of data, there's georeferencing, right? And I'm not talking about the future, I'm talking about the present. This is the new standard. And when I see a new ag system with no georeferencing of the data, I can't believe it. Because when we're talking about the agricultural segment, it's very important to be able to track data and to have a digital twin. And we cannot have a digital twin unless we have geospatial data.
Yes, let's take one more question, but I'm just going to say this. All I keep hearing is Tommy saying we have to get rid of spreadsheets, and now Joaquín is saying we just need to add a column. So I'm like, maybe this is a problem that we need to definitely work on right out of the gate. Andy, you can help explain this to me later. Yes, Tommy, last question.
Yes, so this is what Chad was talking about this morning. What benefits does the Silicon Valley model have in the Argentinian startup world?
Silicon Valley startup in, the advantage, I would say, from the right mindset, Silicon Valley startup, it's great that they have an idea, right? And a lot of great Silicon Valley startups, they just come up with an idea, and in Silicon Valley, they can easily raise money for that idea, even if it doesn't have any practical matter. But you provide the practical nature here. And I guess, and maybe this is something that we can explore in the future, but it's like, how do we get those really smart people that want to be entrepreneurs or want to solve problems closer to what a real problem is or a real challenge is, and have that conversation? And I guess that gets me to Cultivar in general. It's a conversation. It's a place where conversation can happen, where collaboration can happen. And really, I think what we should try to do is get more of those types of folks here and at the table, because if you've been with a startup before, a great startup, a very successful startup, they're sitting side by side with their end user, looking and seeing what's going on and figuring out and developing something that really helps that user out. And so I think that's how a Silicon Valley startup, I'd get them a plane ticket down here during growing season, have them sit out on the farm, and have them see what's going on, see the challenges, and maybe where things could potentially be optimized, or how does it help a farmer out. That would be highly effective, because they might have the skills, or maybe they know the tools or the capabilities, but that really, I think, would be an advantage for a Silicon Valley startup to engage down here, is to really provide some practical value for them.
Very good. So we have about 2 minutes left. I'm going to land this plane on time. That was a geospatial joke, kind of. I'm so proud of myself. I didn't really mean to do that. I'm going to let each one of our panelists make just kind of some closing remarks, but I think to the point around what are next steps. So in terms of Cultivar, St. Louis ecosystem, trying to engage and interact with ecosystems across Latin America. We still have a lot of relationships to build. I think we've got a great foundation here, but what are some immediate next steps in the eyes of the three of you that we could do very quickly as we round out this panel? So, Tomás?
Yeah, basically, I would say to all young agronomists and all young students, this is a generational opportunity for you guys to think differently and help us understand what the problems are, or not help us if you don't want to, but I think that there's a very big opportunity for a change, to adapt to this change of paradigm.
Excellent. Joaquín?
Sí, desde nuestro lado
From our standpoint, I think that a good way to collaborate along this process, which is highly necessary and good, is that we should be active users and critical users in a good sense, right? We need to closely work with those who are providing solutions to us to align all the tools to our needs.
Andy?
The last thing I'd like to hit on is collaboration. And so I think the one element of what we can continue to do is continue to collaborate. I mean, collaboration, it's very intentional. People don't naturally tend to partner and collaborate. You've got to intentionally do that. And then I think the other thing that I hear is like, you know, is one region better than another? We've got a global problem. And that's the cool part about this is we have a common problem amongst all of us that we all have to work together to solve. We're going to have food security challenges. We're going to have climate security challenges. We're going to have, these things are happening. And by us working together, we've got to be able to solve those problems. And so that's why I'm excited about this forum, is we are working together to a common problem. It's not, you know, the U.S. and South America, and, you know, it's how do we all work together, and it's going to take all of us working together to help solve the problem.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for coming. I think showing up to these conversations, whether it's a cultivar engagement or otherwise, showing up and meeting our peers to have these conversations and connect each other is critical to all of this moving forward. So thank you for coming today. It's been lovely to meet so many of you this week, and I wish you a great rest of your conference.